Welcome to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Alston, and it is my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. I am so excited, yes, again, with another amazing speaker. So make sure you stay tuned and listen to this entire podcast, as well as listen to all the podcasts that is posted on this season this year. We have 65 speakers. I know the number keeps going up, but we have 65 wonderful and amazing people on this podcast that's here to share their knowledge and expertise with you. So please make sure that you take plenty of notes. You can't get this anywhere else. And take advantage of this unique opportunity. Just in case you did not know, the purpose of the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast is not only to share our industry information, but we're also encouraging you, the working professional, to enter their line of work. We would also like to take a moment to thank our corporate business partners and sponsors, a family of authors, Butler Armstead Consulting Solutions, Human Resource Learning Center, J&F Enterprises, and Women Offering Wealth, along with many of our business partners and sponsors who's helping to make this event a success. So today we have another thought leader, executive life coach, Dr. Gayle Haynes, who is on here today, and she is going to be talking to us about what she is doing for the community with her gifts, and also about her new book that she's going to talk about today. So I'm going to read a little bit about her bio. Dr. Gayle Haynes is a thought leader, executive leadership coach, and international communicator who helps others discover the power of identity and collaboration. A powerful collaborator and connector, she is also gifted at gender communication, interpreting the language of men for women and the language of women for men, and helping her clients to form powerful, positive relations. She is also the author of several books, including The Conduct of Kings, The Conduct of Queens, 1 Minute Success Secret for Women, and The Power of a Woman Who Leads. And so I want everybody to continue reading her bio because she has some other amazing stuff on there. And so, Dr. Gayle, I would like to welcome you to the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me as your guest. I am excited about this opportunity.
Wonderful. So tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and how did you get into the communicator of gender?
Well, I was born in Durham, North Carolina. My father was in the military. So when I was 5 years old, I went to live in Asia. So I was brought up in diversity. I wasn't encapsulated or raised in the comfort of the African American community. And so I lived in Asia for over 4 years, and I've lived in Europe for over 12. Because I am a former military daughter and a former military spouse. And so I learned about gender communications, or, I learned about communication probably in a different way than, say, most people, because I was kind of thrown into diversity. So I learned to speak the language of other nations, if you will, at an early age.
Okay. And so when you were doing some of that in your experience over in those other countries, what are some of the things that you actually just really learned about the different cultures between us being African American and then those over there?
But what I learned was that I was around Americans, and what I learned, let me put it to you this way. I had learned about race. I didn't learn about race until I was 7. I didn't realize I was Black. Okay. I just didn't see anything different. My grandmother told me I was pretty and smart. So that's what I believed until I turned 7 years old, and I had an experience with a little European boy who told me, when I say European, I mean people of European descent. He was white. He told me that I was Black, and I thought there was something wrong with that little boy because, see, my mother had given me a box of Crayola crayons. You know, the big ones with the sharpener in the back. When I was girl, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. When I was 7 years old, I told my mother, in the first grade, you get the one with the jumbo crayons, right? Well,
Right.
I couldn't wait till I got to be in the second grade because I was a big girl. And I wanted that big box with the sharpener on the back. So she promised me she would do that. So the first thing I did when I got my box of crayons was to find my skin color. So what happened was that I went to school, and this little boy, he was always turned around looking in my face. And, he told me I was pretty and smart. So I knew he knew what he was talking about because that's what my grandmother always told me. So I figured we need to take it to the next level. So I said to him, I said, I need you to be my boyfriend. Well, he just shook his head no, and I thought maybe he didn't hear me. So I repeated my request to him. This little, he was the prettiest little blue-eyed, blonde-haired boy I'd ever seen in my life. And I said, well, we would make a good couple. I said, so I need you to be my boyfriend. He told me no, and I said, why not? And I remember he changed my life with one finger. He rubbed the back of my left hand. Well, I thought maybe there was something wrong with him.
Oh,
Then he
wow.
said, he said he took one finger. He says, no, and he rubbed the back of my hand. I was like, oh, there was nothing on my hand. I said, what's that? Then I realized, then he said, well, you're black. Well, see, I was ready for him. I said, I am not black. I am sienna. See, I found my color in the crayon box.
Okay,
So
okay.
I thought was something wrong with this little boy, and I was upset that he didn't know his colors. I said, how did he get to the second grade and he didn't know his colors? I thought he was very dumb. So I realized at a very early age that I need to learn how to communicate very differently. And this little boy knew something about me that I didn't know. And as the story goes on, I went home and asked my mother about it, and she laughed and she said, "Yes, baby, that's what they call us. They call us black. They call us colored. Remember, this is in the early 60s, and they call us Negro." I didn't like any of those names. And I said, "Mama, who is they? Because they need a box of crayons because they don't know their colors." And my mother just, she knew that I was a different little girl, so she kind of gave me some freedom. And I just didn't like the fact that I was with all these people who knew something about me or said something about me that I didn't know. So I went on this lifelong journey for this one word that I think that plagues a lot of African Americans, and that word is identity.
Yes.
Because I strongly believe that if you don't know who you are, you will never know what belongs to you. And so we are the only ethnicity in these United States of America whose identity has been skewed. Most of us do not know who our great 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 grandfathers and grandfathers were. We know that we come from a lineage of slaves, and so we have even we bring that into our communities as well. So what I do, and this leads me to what I do today, I am what they call, and I didn't give myself this name, this is what people have called me. I go into the public schools. First of all, backtrack a little bit. I was the first African American female law enforcement officer in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And I went into law enforcement because somebody told me I couldn't. And so I'm a firstborn girl. And so I grew up with my father, sharing a birthday with my father. And he wanted a son when he had me, right? But
Okay.
too bad he had a girl.
Mm-hmm.
So my father taught me the ways of men, if that makes any sense. I learned how
Yes.
men communicated, probably better than most women, because we women like to hang out together. I never did like hanging out with a lot of women. I mean, I have four sisters and a mother. There were six women in our family, but I was always hanging out with my father. He was a lot more interesting to me because he didn't communicate in circles. He communicated in straight lines. And I seem to like straight lines. Tell me the truth. Tell me the facts. Let's give me the
Mm-hmm.
facts. I'm always that person. And
Right.
so my father and I shared a birthday, and he taught me the ways of men. And as a result of that, I went into law enforcement in the 70s when there were not many women, much less black women in law enforcement. And I fared pretty well because I understood one thing that a lot of women don't are just now getting. Some of them get it, some of them still don't. Is that what drives men is not love. What drives men is respect. They want
That.
to be honored above all things.
Mm-hmm.
And we sometimes we embarrass our men. We talk about them like a dog. We say all kinds of stuff, but they don't show up the way that we want them to show up. And I have helped many women get married. Many women have successful relationships because I said, honey, if nothing else, you need to honor him. I said, even if he's not honorable, I heard this man say this. I will never forget it. He said, look, if you're talking to a man, you're talking to one of two people, a king or a fool. Depending upon who you talk to is who answer you. So I always, when I'm confronted with men, I talk to the king. And if the fool keeps talking to me, I ignore him and keep talking to the king because eventually the king will knock the fool out of the way. And as
Wow.
and as a
Okay.
result of that, you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
as a
that is
result of
really,
that,
yeah.
I start talking and I go into the schools and talk to young boys because I don't want them going to jail, especially young boys of color. I go into schools. I'm usually the only woman that does this, and I had developed a class called the Conduct of Kings because I want to help them to show up differently. I said, people expect you to show up a certain way. And so I go in and teach them communication because I was raised in those other communities. I go in and teach them how to show up, how to write, how to speak, how to show up very differently. So it kind of throws people off. So when Keyshawn shows up, he ain't saying, what's up? He's saying, hi, how are you? My
Okay.
name is Keyshawn. You see what I'm saying?
Thank you, Shaw.
So,
Okay, so Dr. Gail,
yeah,
I want to jump
yeah,
in just a little bit because,
yeah,
girl,
come on.
you are on fire. Okay, you're on
This is my
fire.
passion.
I
This is my
see it. I
passion.
hear it. I'm telling you, everybody who's listening to this podcast, I'm pretty sure that you guys are just jumping up and down right now because I want to take a step back so that we can kind of digest some of the stuff you've already
Okay.
said, which is, first of all, I want to applaud the fact that you actually went into a profession that was already hard for women to get into. So kudos for you for being the first female officer in your city, which I think is phenomenal because a lot of females who wanted to go into law enforcement probably didn't make the cut, and you were one of the few that did. So I want to just congratulate you on that. Just that effort
Thank you. Thank
alone.
you.
And just
Thank you.
speaking to the career aspect, because I know there's some people who may be listening to this podcast, if you can just kind of share some of your best advice for people who, or women specifically, who want to go into law enforcement, what they should know about before they go in. And then we're going to go back over to the other segment about
Okay.
your schools and things of that nature.
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to be confident that you really can do the job. And I will tell you, a lot of men will not tell you this, but we're a lot better at it than they are. and, and I really, what I mean by that is this: law enforcement is, sure, it's enforcing the law, but the biggest part of law enforcement that they don't tell you about is that you must be a communicator and you must be fluent in communication. And what I mean by that is you have to hear what people don't say. And women are, and that's what we call intuitive, being intuitive. And women are generally intuitive. And what people tend to forget, and is that the female of the species is always the most dangerous. Okay. And so I always say to women, if you make a decision to go into law enforcement, the first thing you need to find, hopefully you can find, is a good listening ear who's not judgmental, and that someone who will tell you the truth and who will encourage you. Because one of the things that I did not find when I got in law enforcement was a safe place where I could talk to somebody about what I was going through. Because most of the women in the 70s were like, well, you ain't got no business there. I had no safe place to go to talk to somebody about the stuff I was dealing with these men. So what I ended up doing is doing what I do best, communicating and learning how to talk to these men. And I worked with mostly white men. And honey, by the time it was over, a lot of them brothers was in love with me because I understood what
Yeah, but you know
I
what?
try
You
to be funny.
right. No, but you know what? I think you said it three times already, and it's so true that women have to really know how to communicate with men. And that is so true no matter what you do, whether it's relationship or whether it's your personal career, anywhere you are, just like men have to learn to communicate with us because we're that kind of, species.
Yes,
We're very
yes,
complex at times. And so they
sure.
have to really try to figure us out, right? But I
Right.
don't I don't know how many of us, and this could be a nice survey question for people who are listening, how many of us really take the time to listen, to really comprehend what the men are really saying to us or how they really interpreting us. And one of the things that I will actually say, and I know my husband's probably saying, why are you sharing this, right? Like, he is one of those people that actually teaches me how to communicate and understand the communication of men because they
Mhm.
are on a different playing field. They have pretty much just show me the facts, just tell me what you want. They don't take anything personal. And just like you, I always have a knack of communicating better with men than I have with women, even though I can communicate with women, but I can definitely see the difference.
Oh yeah, I like it. They
Yeah,
said, "Give me the facts." They said,
yeah,
"Listen,
just give me the
what
facts.
do you
Just tell.
want?" Let me give you an example. One of the women I was talking to says, "Well, he knows I like roses," and she said her husband brought her these flowers, and it was a big bouquet of flowers. Right? He knows I like roses. I don't know why he brought me these flowers. And I looked at her. I'm thinking, when's the last time you told him you like roses? Well, he should know me. I know him. I said, hold up, stop right there. I said, let me just say this to you. I'm gonna tell you what one man told me, and I want you to hear me about the value of that. He said, roses ain't nothing but a phone call. Ain't
Ooh.
nothing but a phone call. And so women make all this big deal. Oh, he sent me flowers. He sent me look. Brother said roses ain't nothing but a phone call. Give me your credit card number. He said I could do that for any woman. He said, but when I stop and I say I want daffodils, I want daisies, I want this, and make a bunch that's different, then you better pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I
It,
said, and look, she started crying. I said, that brother went into the florist and said, I don't want roses. Everybody getting roses. He chose all this mix of flowers that didn't make a bit of sense to you. But he went up in there and made a choice. And roses ain't nothing but a phone call. Girl, that really woke me up. Because women, oh, look at the
wow.
roses he sent me. I'm thinking,
Wow.
he didn't even choose those. And
Right.
so I look at the behind, so I help women to see what's behind the stuff. And so then she got upset. Well, he didn't remember my birthday. My thing is, how is he treating you every day?
Oh, you're gonna start something, Dr. Gale. I'm
Okay, my
telling you.
thing is,
You're gonna
my
start
thing
something
is,
on this
if
podcast. I'm telling
I'm
you.
with a man, let me tell you something. I don't look at if he forgets my birthday,
Right.
Valentine's Day,
Right.
Christmas. My thing is, if that brother's bringing it home every day, I don't care about those days. Baby, love me where I am on today. I'm just saying, we make such a big deal over foolishness as women. And look, if you want that, then you have to say, baby, here are the dates. Remind. I don't have to remind. Yes, you do. They focusing on this. Men do three things well. They protect, provide, and serve. And when you protect and provide and serve, and you don't remember all that stuff all the time.
And you
You
know
have to
what,
be
that is
trained.
that is so true. Men only care about just the very simplest of things. Even just like, I think it's a good point you made, and I want all the ladies to hear this. When your man goes into the store and says that I'm thinking about my girl and I'm gonna buy her something that I know she probably wouldn't like, but just the fact that it is unique to him, you have to really look at that as really he is really into you.
Wait a minute, hold up. You on his
There's a
mind.
lot of,
You
yeah,
on his
you
mind.
on his
My,
mind. Yes, you
girl, if
on
you
his
on a man's
mind.
mind, if you on a
That's
man's
right.
mind, you better get it, make it do what it do. I'm just
Right.
saying.
Now, the other
Ooh,
point
I
that
didn't
you
wait a minute, hold up. We weren't supposed to be talking about this today.
no, we're not supposed to talk about this today. You kind of like this podcast, but I will make one point that for men to be simplistic, I would say that my husband always says that men only want good food, and I'm just to say this, so
And good sex.
yeah, good sex. All the kids that close your ears. Good food, good sex, and just a quiet, clean home. That's really all they want. If you just cater to that, they will do everything they can to take care of you, provide. And ladies, we have to stop being shallow. Stop asking for all these things that they cannot provide, and taking over. Just let them do what they do and show that appreciation. And I guarantee you, your man will be going above and beyond. I'm telling you. But
Well,
sometimes
I
we
want to
have
say something else
women,
too.
sometimes
I
we
want to
have
say something else
women
too.
that feel
Mhm.
like that if they don't work a specific job, that they're not bringing it in, or they're not catering to a specific thing. But just like you said, if he is coming home every day, if he
Yeah.
is treasuring you every day, if he's stopping to just tell you how much he loves you every day, all that other stuff doesn't even matter.
Well, even if he doesn't say it, here's something I learned from a
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Here's something I learned. Let's say, for instance, we need a man to do something, right?
Right,
Okay,
right.
we say, okay, and this is May. Okay, or June. Baby, I need you to go and fix that thing right there for me. He said, okay. And then a week goes by, he ain't fixed it. Okay. 2 weeks goes by, he has not fixed it. 3 weeks goes by, he hasn't fixed it. Then you mad, right? But what we don't understand and know is this. When we ask him, then we start asking him for progress reports. When you gonna do this? I asked you to do that. Are you gonna ever do this? Why did you do this? Look, let me tell you what happens. When you ask him to do something, guess what happens? His mind goes to working. Click, click, click. And he looks, and you know what he does? He starts looking at it, and
Yes.
you only see the peripherals. He's
Right.
looking at the structure, he's
Yep.
looking at the quality, he's looking at
Exactly.
the time, he's
Yep.
looking at all, he's putting a project together in his brain,
In his
and he will give
brain.
you and you know what he's doing? He's
Yes.
doing something you didn't do. You mad after 3 weeks, and then you
Yes.
start asking him from a progress report, and you turn him from a man into a boy. You only ask little boys for progress reports. You don't ask
Wow.
that of a man because guess what happens? You immediately then he has to start over because
Wow.
you stopped him because you changed him from a man to a boy because you required a progress report. But if you had waited and waited, he will give you something exceedingly and abundantly above all you can ask or think. This is what I tell women. I say
Wow.
he will operate in the power exceedingly
Mhm.
and abundantly above all you can ask or think according to the power that works in him and in you if you would just let him be and let him be a man. I said, just
Wow.
you ask him to do something, he heard you. 6 months later, if he hasn't done it, that's because he's working out because he wants to give you something that's more high priced than what you asked for. But when you're asking for progress reports, each progress report, he has to start over because you turned him from a man to a boy. You turned him from a
Mhm.
boy from a king to a boy. Now it's up to you. What you want to do? Now, girl, I could talk about this all day because this is my
Well, look,
area. I
look,
love
look.
it.
I'm going to make this one point, and then we're gonna
Yes,
go into the next segment, okay? But I will say, in terms of like when you say you asking them for a progress report, I will say there is a way that you can ask
yes,
him without making him feel like he's a failure at not doing something, which is that term making him feel like a boy because you keep asking him over and over again. Like if there's something that I want my husband to do and he has not done it, and yes, it is so true. He is literally rebuilding this thing in his brain, thinking about
absolutely,
how much money
absolutely.
it's going to cost, how much effort and time it's
Yes,
going to take. Did he have enough sleep last
yes,
night? He's thinking about all that.
yes.
But usually, what I'll do is I would just gently ask him and I say, hey, listen, I really want to do this project. Do you think that you'll be able to have it done by this time? And if not, can you let me know so I can do something else? This way, you're putting it in his head that you have other things that you're working on, and he will tell you whether he's going to be able to do it or he's not going to be able to do it. And then
Well, see,
after
you
that,
you've
and then you
learned your man.
wait a minute, hold
You've
on.
learned your man.
Hold on.
You,
And then what you do is you have to accept that answer. And see, this is where women fall at. We don't accept the answer as the answer. It has to always be another answer after that. Once he give you the answer to what your question was, you move on and you do something else. And when he sees that you have moved on, he's going to come to you and he's going to say, oh, baby, I told you I was going to do it for you, but let me take care of that for you right now. See, that's how you work around that little thing. You know what I'm saying?
well, you know what? Every man is different.
Yes.
You know your man.
Yeah. You got to
Okay,
know
and
him.
so Cynthia, you got to know your man, and see, you got to know your man. You know how he works. The point is, most women don't know their men,
Mhm.
and even if you do something like that to some men, because that's not has not been your custom, they will be offended.
Right.
And so
They
you
will.
got to find a way. You've got to find a way to communicate with your man. And then there's always a perfect time to communicate with him. And we'll talk about that on another program
Yeah,
because
we definitely have to talk about
I
this. I
tell
have to
women,
throw some water on you right now. I got to throw a
yeah,
whole bucket of
because you
water on
know
you
what?
right
We didn't already talk. We didn't already talk forever, and we haven't even talked about business.
Right. But you know what? And I'm gonna tell you, this is business too, because here's the
It
thing, we're
is.
all human. We're all human.
Yes.
And
Yes.
these are things on this podcast. We talk about stuff like this, and we talk about health and wellness, and we talk about professionalism because that makes us who we are. And so I love to talk about things of this nature because it lets people know that we can be hit no matter what on any level at any time. And so this is just one of those things where as women and men, we have to recognize who we are because we not only do we have to know who we are, we have to know who other people are. We're in the office 8, 9, 10, 16 hours a day most times, and communication is a key. So Dr. Gayle, I want to get back to the your book that you wrote and talking about how this communication and what sparked you to write this book. So let's talk about your book.
What sparked me to write the book is exactly what we're talking about. And
Hmm.
really, honestly, when I saw the abysmal affairs of our relationships, and I said, well, we need to, because what happens is we wait until young men are in middle school and high school to start training them to be men. Okay. We wait until there's arterial bleeding, and then we realize, oh my God, the system is going to take them. There's a prison pipeline. We have a lack of quote unquote quality black men. Oh my God, the prisons are filled with our babies, our men, and so we wait until middle and high school. So I said, I never forget. I went to a conference. They were saying we got to get there. We got to change the system. We got to get out there and fight law enforcement. I stood up. I said, no, we do not. And they looked at me like, oh. I said, we don't need to change the system, gentlemen. We need to stop feeding the system. I said, if you don't feed something, it will die. And they looked at me. I said, the problem is you all are waiting till they look like men and you start dealing with them. No, everybody in this room need to humble themselves and get on their knees. And whoever's eyes you're looking into is where you need to start. We need to start when they're young boys, when they're boys and they're open and they're pliable, and we start teaching them principles of kingship, that they're kings and what that means. And they were looking at me like I was crazy. So they didn't listen. So you know what I did? I went into the schools and I started talking to little boys. I said, please let me be a part of your program. And eventually there were men there present when I was talking. I'm talking to these mentors. I'm talking to the young boys, and they were like, oh my God, I'm go home now. I'm a better husband. I'm a better father. I'm a better man because I hear what you're saying to these boys. And I said, that's the whole point, is that the first voice that both of these men heard, all of y'all heard, was your mama's voice. But y'all forgot that. Y'all were inside of us. We're the nurturers, and we are the ones that give you permission to be strength, to have strength, and to be men. That's what we're to go on. And now you're going over there with your daddy. That's the voice that they long to hear. And so what happens is they've extracted women from the equation and think only men should train boys, which is so not true, because boys need that nurturing piece, including high school and college age men. And so I wrote this book called The Conduct of Kings, and it's a little booklet, really. It's got 12 ruling principles to help you reign in your domain with power. And it is a book that talks very candidly about the things of men, for men. And I highly recommend it for middle school and up. It's not for the little boys, because we talk about some really adult kind of things. And, in this day and age, young men are being hit with stuff. Our children are being hit with things that many of us did not get hit with until we were in college or we were young adults. But it talks about a myriad of things. Like one of the opening for it says, it says driving force, that unstoppable beast that dwells inside of every king that yearns for victory. Every man, no matter who he is, wants to have victory. I do not care. And they have to identify their driving force. And the first ruling principle, of course, is one that you heard me say earlier. If you don't know who you are, you will never know what belongs to you. And so many young men want to be called kings, but they don't know what kings do. Because if you want to truly possess power, you must also understand with that, you must accept the responsibility for your decisions. So it's one thing to have power, but it's another thing to accept the responsibility. You're responsible for yourself. And if you want to be a wise ruler, that's one of the concepts in here, one of the ruling principles. You must first learn to rule yourself. And so many times we don't talk to young men about ruling themselves and what that means, what that looks like. And so as a communicator and as a woman who understands that men have a need to be respected, I go into the circle of men and say, with respect, I said, here's something you have to look at if you're going to be a king. And I tell men all the time. I said, one man said to me, "Oh, you don't like men, do you?" I said, "Oh no." He said, "You don't want a man, do you?" I said, "Oh no, I want a king." He said, "What?" I said, "There's a difference." I said, there is a difference, a way a man handles himself. There's a certain way a king handles himself as opposed to an ordinary man. Now, you can be an ordinary man if you want to. I said, however, that's fine. That's your choice. But I'm looking for a king. I said, I'm looking for a king whose sword is bloody because he killed the beast, that guarded the mountain, that blocked his way from getting to me. And so this book, The Conduct of Kings, are just 12 ruling principles that I believe that will help any man start a foundational piece for his life. He can change at any age that will help him reign in his domain with power. And so we're debuting this in a couple weeks. We're going to have King t-shirts, and we're going to have this book available. We're going to have a book launch, and I'm really excited because my son contributed to this book because I needed that masculine flavor. He helped me he looked it over and gave his seal of approval to me when writing this book, because it's the first time I've written for men, and people have been asking me for over 15 years to write for men.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. I mean, I can't even imagine if I was sitting in a room and you were talking to a whole bunch of young men about what you're saying about the difference between being a young man and being a king,
Mhm.
and what that actually looks like. And I would want to ask, in your professional opinion, why do you think a lot of us do not understand the difference of your concept of being a king or being a successful man? Why do you think that there's such a lack in that?
Well, because we're the only ethnicity whose identity has been skewed. We always extract our identity from other groups. Our identity was stolen from us. And so therefore we only know what the media paints or what other people say. And we turn on each other. And then when we do see a man who is being a king, then there's the ridicule or man, look, let me give you an example. I had one man say to me, he said, at the end of the day, all I want to do is melt in the arms of my queen. And I said, "Ooh, that sounds wonderful." But he got hijacked by other men because he said that. They were like, "Man, you need to be a man, blah, 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 blah." And I'm thinking, do you know what that would do to a woman if she heard somebody say that? You got
Yeah.
right there, that brother's
Yeah.
protecting, providing, and he is serving. Immediately, I knew this man was a king. And I thought, oh my God. And the other guys, because they had done so much messing up and had not honored their queens, they were having problems. And so they were going to try to extract that from his life. He said, I'm not having that. I draw a boundary right there. Kings draw boundaries. Men do not. They fight
Wow, wow.
foolishness.
They
King,
fight foolishness, but
the
kings do
foolishness.
not.
And so kings do not. Kings do not.
Mhm.
They draw a boundary because they understand the rules of engagement. And they're not going to let you just come in their kingdom and do anything. And they don't have to be nasty about it either. A king will just let you know what his boundaries are and act accordingly. So when I get around men, I know, and I can tell the kings before they even open their mouths, the men who are truly kings, because in order for you to truly possess power, you've got to embrace responsibility. And that's the first thing a king knows, is that he's responsible for himself and for those that serve in his kingdom that he serves. I mean, it sounds like something out of a book, but it is in a book because I wrote it. But I'm just
Right,
saying that's
right.
true. It's true.
Mhm.
You know,
But
a man
it
of
is true.
honor.
It is true because, I've seen it in my own lifetime. I see it in my husband. We had another
Yes.
person on this podcast that also talked about self identity. He's talking about how you dress and how you respect yourself so that your woman can see you as the person you should be. And all of us need to have that identity, and that's one of the reasons why we have this podcast, because we're saying, hey, listen, this is who we really are. This is who we really can become if you just open your eyes and see it. I can tell you, Gail, from my own personal experience, when I was younger, when I was a little girl, I had huge problems with identity. Only because when I was younger, I was a lot more light skinned. I didn't see many people of race on television. It was hard for me to identify who I was because I truly did not see color at all. My
Mm-hmm.
grandparents, my mother, my family members did not talk about race whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
even found myself emulating what they look like on television because I assume that this is what we're supposed to look like as a person, not as a black or white or whatever race they were. If they wore their hair in a little slick back and a flip, I wore my
Mm-hmm.
hair slicked back in a flip. If I saw someone on TV and they had what would be the old school snatch back, flip or whatever, I will wear my hair like that or I will wear makeup that way. But I never really identified with being an African American or being a woman or whatever. I didn't even identify with any of that stuff because I truly saw people as just people. But then
Sure.
I started, because of my name and then getting jobs later on, I soon realized the difference as I was being discriminated later on and really opened my eyes to how different I really was. So you're totally right, at least from my experience. I'm pretty sure people who are listening on this podcast have may or may not have similar experiences, but that was definitely my experience growing up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and sometimes the 90s
Yeah.
with identity. And I really want us to really start looking at us as who we really are and what we truly can become with the identity that we have. And so, what other things on? I know you have a couple other books that you want to talk about on this podcast, and I'm really interested to hear about those as well.
Well, briefly, I just say I ask people just to go to my website, handleyourbusinessgirl.com, and you can find out all about me. I'm completing right now as we're taping this. In the next few weeks, I'll also be launching the second book, The Conduct of Queens. But I've probably written over 50 books. But the ones that I'm here talking about now is The Conduct of Queens and The Conduct of Kings, and they can go to my website to find out any information because I've written so many books, girl. I lost count. Honestly, I'm not trying to be funny. You probably can't tell I have a lot of energy, and
You have tons of energy. I can tell already. Yes.
And what I do is instead, I'm very much of an extrovert, but I've learned because I have so much energy. Sometimes that energy, I have what they call the neosporin syndrome. Okay. When I go into a midst of people, if there's any toxicity, it comes out in my presence because the gift of exhortation is so strong in my life. I love encouraging people and helping them and building them up. And there are people who don't like that. Some people thrive on people being miserable. And I have suffered great attacks because I'm so positive. And so I have a neosporin syndrome, or the neosporin effect. I call it EFFCECT. The neosporin effect. Neosporin, you put it on a wound, right? And it draws out the infection. That's
Yep.
me and my personality. And people will say, "Well, I don't know what's going on with her," blah, blah. And it's really interesting. The people who I'm either people that people either love me or hate me. The ones who hate me can't tell you why. But a lot of those people oftentimes love being negative. So what I've learned to do is take that energy and focus inward and write books. Focus inward and have these kind of conversations that we're having today. So that's what I do, because my whole thing is the only reason we don't know who we are is because we're not holding up the mirror for each other and telling each other how absolutely awesome we are. So I go around with a big mirror and I hold up the mirror for people, be they male or female, and I say, look in this mirror and tell me, don't you see a king? Tell me, don't you see a queen? And I said, don't let anyone change that. You have the authority to walk in that, because you have to own it, and you have to stop anyone who tries to tell you differently. It's okay to say that's enough. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say I don't receive that. It's okay for you to do that. And so sometimes it doesn't matter how old a person is, they need the permission. They need someone to come along who is what we call, who's been designated as a mirror holder. And I'm a person that's a mirror holder, and I always have mirror will travel. I go around and I hold up mirrors for people, because I believe that's part of the reason why we do what we do, or we don't do what we don't do, because people are not encouraging and equipping people to do that and to know how totally awesome they are. So that's why I'm what they call an identity formation instructor.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And I love the fact that you broke it down. And I love the fact that you're walking around with a mirror. That is very interesting concept. We need to all look in the mirror. So I want to ask you another question. What other initiatives are you currently working on, that you want people to know about? And if you don't have anything, maybe you can share some really good advice for folks about, their kingship, their queenship, things that you have spoken about to many people that you feel will be useful or helpful in your podcast here.
Okay. I believe that everyone has a story and we need to tell our stories. Some of us die with our stories in our belly, and that was not the intention of our creator. And so I am a book coach. I love helping people to tell their stories, and I'm going to be doing a concept. Well, it's actually a project within the next few months called the Queen's Court Anthology Project, and it's not just for women; it's for men. Where I'm going to be doing anthology projects, helping people to tell their stories. So they can go to handleyourbusinessgirl.com and find out about it. And also when they go there, I ask they join my list, because I'm going to be activating my list very soon. I have some new people going to help me put stuff out. And also, I'm doing the Queen's Court Anthology Project, but also I just got asked to be a part of a speaking tour called Go Ask the Doctors. And we're going to be coming to several cities. Go ask the doctors, several cities. And we're going to have open forums for women. I'm so excited about this, where it's me and Dr. Selena Richards here from Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. And we're going to be on the road, and we're going to have open forums where we get in the midst of women and say, ask your questions. And we're going to answer them. And it's going to be off the cuff. It's going to be real. It's going to be raw. It's going to be, when I say raw, I don't mean raunchy. I mean, it's going to be real, straight from the hip, kind of the talk that I'm doing now. And we're going to be answering women's questions, those burning questions that women have, because so many times, like on this podcast, we answer questions. So many times people don't get to hear the podcast, but they'll come to hear somebody speak, and so or talk about it. So they'll be able to ask questions from the floor, and Dr. Selena and I will be answering those questions.
Are these medical questions, or are these are just general
No,
question? Any question?
it's going to be anything. No, we're not medical doctors. Neither one of us.
Okay.
Hallelujah
Okay.
to the Lamb of God. No, I'm not trying to do all that. It's not a clinical setting at all.
Okay.
Both
All
of us
right.
have doctoral degrees, but we ain't look. We both real, really real. Okay. But they can
Okay.
come and ask the question about, my sister hates me and I don't know what to do. My mom, I don't like my mama, because and we'll talk about that, because guess what? That's in both of us have been through. So we'll be taking very real questions from the floor. Nothing is off limits, and we'll answer it to a best of our ability. And look, it's going to be an open forum. Go ask the doctors.com is the website
Ask the
that's going to be
doctor.
going up. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me ask you this question, Dr. Gayle. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you need for your small business to thrive?
What do I need for my small business to thrive? That's a good question. I need I need to and you know what? I need to access my audience more effectively through social media, through speaking engagements. I need more speaking engagements, because I believe that I have a voice that needs to be heard internationally. Although I have spoken internationally, I stopped. speaking a few years back because I had my first child at 41, my second child at 43, and I had to get my children through school. So I focused on my babies. Now they're young adults. So I just need more platforms from which to speak my message. I'd like for everybody to make sure they visit my website, handleyourbusinessgirl.com, because what we just talked about is our business, our relationships, how we do things, even getting your hair, nails done, how you handle your men, your children, your sisters, your brothers. That is our business. Without the people and the connections, you don't have a business.
Okay, fantastic. So I want to encourage everybody who's listening to this podcast to please, if you are excited as I am on this podcast right now to listen to Dr. Gayle, and she is definitely hot and off the cuff, to seek her out, look at her contact information, go to her website, see what city she's going to be in, find her, ask your question, and just connect with her and all the many people that is on this podcast. I can't tell you how exciting that this conversation is, because even though it's not strictly a business topic, we all are individuals and we need to identify with ourselves and be upfront and honest about who we are as a person so that we can be better communicators, better business people, better individuals in general. And so I want to thank you so much, Dr. Gayle, for being on the podcast today. I'm telling you, I want to keep going with this conversation because you got me all riled up, but I want to thank you so much for being on this podcast and being so very candid and sharing everything. And definitely people reach out to her or me if you have any questions with